Happy Friday, Bickies. How's it going? It's me. It's the Friday Takeaway. Every Friday at 12:30 we go live. Today we are talking about money. Hurrah! One of my favorite topics. As you all know, in the Biscuit Factory, we're driven by making revenue, figuring out how we're going to be able to have successful business from a monetary perspective anyway, to keep it all going, to enable us to keep creating. So we're going to talk about money today, and we're going to bring in an expert, an accountant that has kindly given us his time to answer questions. I want to point out that this has been one of the busiest inboxes, direct messages, answers to questions on stories that we've had yet in the Biscuit community. One of them, so many of you guys have submitted questions. I have gazillions of questions for Alan. Alan's going to come on with us in a minute. But I don't want to just read them out and do that. I want you guys in the comments to hit me with your questions, because it's great that he can answer to you specifically here on the call, because everyone's business is different and we're all coming in at different levels and different angles, and we've all different pain points. So really use the comments to anchor your question on this call today. But I have lots of questions for Alan. Alan, are you wiping sweat off? Yeah. So we have Alan for a period of time, and he will answer. I know I've heard great things about Alan, so I'm dying to get him on. I just want to point out as well that I have just gotten braces. You can probably see them there, look. So excuse me if I am spluttering and struggling with some letters and words and laughing at myself on that, as I do all the time. That's what's going on with me. So let's get down and let's get jiggy with this and get Alan in, and we'll get him all spruce moose and ready to. Alan's from cloudaccounts.ie, and he's going to tell us all about all the things we want to know. Hi, Alan.
Hey, Tara, how are you?
How are you? Thanks for coming on with us today.
No worries at all. Happy to be here. A bit intimidating to hear that there's the most amount of questions you've ever got. So that's a good.
All of a sudden, crackle. Everything
Yeah,
goes
yeah,
black.
you're good. What I will say, just before I forget it and start it off, is for you personally with the braces, make sure that you claim tax back on that. 20% of whatever you spend, you get back. So that's some knowledge or some free advice for you there.
I didn't know
Um,
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of people might know you can get health expenses back, medical expenses back. You can do it during the year, or you can wait till the end of the year and get it in a nice lump sum.
Yeah.
But when it comes to dental work, like if you do routine dental stuff, just go for a checkup, scale polish, that kind of filling, that doesn't count. But I think major dental work does. So I think that's where you're getting dental surgeries, but braces falls into that category. So you'll just need to ask your orthodontist for what they call a Form Med 2.
Okay.
And basically, whatever you're spending on the braces, 20% of that should come back into your pocket, provided you've paid enough income tax to match the 20% that you're due back, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
gosh.
don't forget that. That's important.
You see, I love you already because you're
There you go.
straight in there. By the
It's,
way, just on the brace thing, I love that. I love that.
it's just
Thank you
paid,
so much
just
for
paid for
that.
itself. No worries.
Thank you. So, as I said, I do have lots of questions, and you heard what I said just a second
Yeah.
ago. I like to have the conversation as well around the things that come up in the comments. So, gang, if you have any pressing questions, just drop them in the comments for Alan. But I'm going to just throw a few questions at Alan. No, with Alan. I just want to kind of gently,
Yeah,
not at
absolutely.
you, firing them at
You
you.
fire away, and hopefully I've got the answers.
But I just want to, just before we do that, and before that kicks off, I just want you to tell people what it is that you guys actually do. Cloudaccounts.ie. So what tell us about what you do.
Yeah, Cloud Accounts website is www.cloudaccounts.ie, and basically started it off just to do a bit of bookkeeping and a bit of advice and accounting and that kind of thing for sole traders and small businesses Irish based. We're not going to be those accountants that are dealing with the far and wide and crazy tax transactions that are happening with Cayman Island accounts and moving everything from left, right, and centre. But that whole adage, the gap in the market, I've seen that basically, that there's so many sole traders and small businesses out there, and we've spoken to them who have approached what you would call bigger accounting firms, and they're basically either not getting the time, they feel like a very small fish in a big pond, they're not getting responses, they're not getting answered. And I just thought to myself, look, there's a huge gang of people there that need help. I'd much rather deal with them, have those personal conversations, help people out, getting a few quid back if possible, like on the braces, or reducing the tax bill, all legally where possible. And that's pretty much the goal of it. So I am a chartered accountant. I'm finalising my chartered tax advisor studies at the moment. So I've got a couple of exams coming up now in May, which I'm not looking forward to. I've got books all around me.
Caffeine everywhere.
The whole shebang, but it'll pay off in the end. But basically that's the whole point. So I suppose now kind of more focusing on the personal tax side of things, and just helping those sole traders and small businesses complete their tax returns, keep those tax liabilities down, try and get refunds where they're available, just help people with knowledge, and that's the goal of it, but also still tipping away with the bookkeeping and accounting side of it too. So that's cloud accounting in a nutshell.
Brilliant. That's great. And I love the advisory piece, because I think sometimes people just need somebody to guide them on making the decisions. Like one of the questions was, sole trader or limited company. And, some people can figure it out themselves. They just need a trusted source to go, hey, let's have a consultation. Give me the information I need, and it's great to have that touch point with someone that you trust as well. So let's go into that first, Ellen. So that comes up a lot in the community. And I know you've worked with artists before, so like you've had experience with the creative sector. And a big thing for our community is sole trader or company. Which one should I go for? Where do I start? Like, how do you make that decision at the start?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose the simplest answer to that really is you can start as a sole trader tomorrow, this afternoon. It's the simplest way of doing it and starting out as a business. If you were to go down the limited company route, there is a bit more admin and compliance and bureaucracy, as you can imagine, because you would have to form a limited company. You need to file paperwork with the company's registration office. Every year, you then have to file an annual return. If you miss that, it's a big event to miss it. You do not want to miss that one. There'll be penalties and audits and all sorts if you miss that. You would then have to be a director of the company. So, there's responsibilities and legalities that come with that. And then also a company has to file a corporation tax return. And then as a director, you would also have to file a personal tax return. So there's a lot of things going on there for a limited company. Where you're a sole trader, you file an income tax return, and that's it. So it's a lot more straightforward. It's a lot more simplistic. And I would say the sole trader option is the dip your toe in the water option. If someone was thinking, I might start a business on Monday, let's say they're an art, I want to just start selling my artwork on Monday, start as a sole trader, see how you go. If in a year or two's time you've expanded and you're a huge organization, not an organization, but you've huge sales, you're very, very busy, then you might look at considering the limited company route, because there's advantages there that you can invest into pensions, and there's a few bits and pieces, but again, there's a lot of compliance that comes with it. So it's not worthwhile, say on Monday, saying I'm going to form a limited company. I don't know how this is going to go. 6-12 months later, it's not going very well. You're going to have a lot more admin to shut down the company, and there's just a lot more involved in it. So I would definitely say sole trader, dip your toe in the water, start out small. And also what people might want to know is from the tax side of things, when you're going in as a sole trader, if your income is going to be below €5,000 in a year, you don't even have to register for the Form 11, which is the big income tax return with revenue. So again, if you're a PAYE worker and you're thinking, I might start something small on the side, it's my hobby, it's my passion, and I could see myself going into this further down the line, but obviously I need to see if there's actually a business there first. Then you have a nice simple way of telling revenue through your Form 12 or your PAYE tax return. where people might be familiar with claiming medical expenses back at the end of the year. There's a box in there that you can say to revenue, look, I sold paintings last year, I made 2.5 grand, I'm telling you that now, tax me on that. And then it keeps it even more straightforward again. So there's kind of building blocks, I would say, almost there to follow. But definitely, if you're starting out, just thinking about getting into this world, go as a sole trader. And the simple thing to do there is either start trading under your own name, or you go on to cro.ie and register a business name. If you want to say Biscuit Community, for example, you are going to reserve that business name to keep it for yourself. And then that means that you're allowed to trade under that name. And if you ever then decide to form that into a limited company, there's a way to convert that over and still trade as Biscuit Community Limited, etc. So, yeah, it's a step-by-step process, but start small, go big.
Okay, and just get used to the new processes. And that was actually another question that came up. A lot of people, like you just mentioned, would have a passion but also a job, whether full-time or part-time, and they're just not quite sure, when do I register it as a business the minute I have a painting and put it on social media? At what point do you register it as a business if you're just kind of playing around with it on the side?
Yeah, I suppose if you've painted one painting and you want to sell it and you put it up there and you put it online and it's there for a few months, I wouldn't be jumping to register a business day one for that. I would, again, try it out and see if there's something there. But that would be where I'm saying you could declare that income as kind of just additional side income to revenue as part of a Form 12 or a PAYE tax return, and make it nice and straightforward for yourself without having the admin involved in possibly contacting an accountant saying, I want to register as a sole trader. I'm gonna bring in loads and loads of money, so I need to register for Form 11 and for income tax, and then it doesn't happen, and then you still have to pay the accountant to file that tax return, as opposed to maybe following some of the YouTube, or there's other people on Instagram that show you how to do a PAYE tax return nice and straightforward. So yeah, again, step by step, I would always say. And there's nothing wrong with being a PAYE employee and having a side income. Revenue aren't going to say that's not allowed. They encourage it. It's more tax revenue for them, so they'll be happy. And I suppose, especially for this community, if it's something you're in work, doing it day to day, 9 to 5, whatever it might be, and you're thinking of maybe selling a few paintings or some pottery or some other arts and crafts that you might be working on, just take it easy, see how you go, see if there's a market there for it before jumping in with 2 feet and putting all that effort and investment in, and then finding out there's not actually anything in this business.
I love that. And a big kind of mantra with me, but how I teach the people inside our community is it's all a testing game too. You have to have the data, for want of a better word, to make the next step, like rather than just diving straight in and investing in all the things, because we want to do it right and we don't want to make mistakes and be given out to by some scary person, so I love that there are stepping stones, and revenue do encourage that, and they make it easy then to do declare the first few sales before you start going. And I love that, and I didn't know that, so that's brilliant. Thanks, Alan. Another big one was when people work from home, like a lot of us do, especially now, but especially when it's the side hustle, or a lot of people have their studios in their garden or part of their house, and we like to incorporate in our expenses how much our business is costing us. And this was actually something that came up in the biscuit factory last week. We're planning numbers for next year and all that good stuff, and one of the girls asked, what proportion of the house bills should I bring in as an expense for my studio or my workspace, and how would you kind of calculate that? Would you have help with that one?
Yeah, so one thing I'd say, just to flag from the very start, is to just be a little bit careful when running a business from a private home, because this is way further down the line for people, but if you ever sell your home, you don't have to pay any capital gains tax on it. So you bought your house for 100,000, you sell it for 300,000 in 20 years, you've made a gain of 200,000. Normally there might be tax on that, because it's your principal private residence, it's exempt. Revenue would say if you run a business from that, home, you might have to do a calculation on, well, I had this room and it was 10% of the square meterage of the house. So actually 10% of my 200 grand gain is not exempt, and therefore I have to pay capital gains tax on that 20,000. So a bit of an extreme example, but it's worth considering just to be kind of careful about where you're running your business from. But yeah, I wouldn't panic too much about it, but it's just worth considering.
Yeah.
But then say the bills side of things, revenue are open, especially off the back of COVID, to broadband, light and heat expenses being incurred from home. Work from home expenses are allowed to be claimed as a tax deduction. So what they do is they, last year it was 10% of light and heat and 30% of broadband. From 2022, they've brought the light and heat up to 30% as well. But it would be for the days that you worked from home. So if somebody is only doing this 1 day a week, you would have to get your bills. Let's say it was €1,000 for your light and heat. 30% of that would get you to €300. You then divide that by 365 days in the year and then multiply it out by the number of days that you actually did work from home. And then there's a bit of maths involved, but that's how you would get to the amount that you would include as an expense for deduction. Now, it can get even further into the granular if you were to say, well, I only worked from that one room and that was 10% of the square meterage. So you can go down a serious rabbit hole in this, but there is a bit of a calculation involved in it. And even during the week, actually, I had a client who got onto me, gave me some bills that they had, and I put it in, and they had a tax refund coming to them, and it was whatever, a couple of €100. It went up by maybe 40 or 50 euro after putting in the bill, and they were like, "But sure, the bills cost me about 2 grand." I was like, "That's pretty much what it's after boiling down to at the end of it." So a big effort for not much, but every little helps, and it's better that we have it than the revenue have it. So
that's
definitely,
right. I got around 12 of those questions. How can I give the tax person that's taking my money less? How do you do that? It's kind of like this. But that's great. Just that those little bits make such a difference if you're kind of accumulating them together. Then, like, they can really add up, can't they?
They do add up. People be surprised, I bought something there for the business. I don't know, maybe it was a notepad for taking orders. I'm sure it was only €3. Sure, what's the point? But again, if you have a few of them during the year, €3 there, €5 there. These once they're actual business expenses. What revenue would say is if it's wholly and exclusively for the business. So if it's a business expense, you are entitled to deduct that from your business income to arrive at your taxable profits. And yet they all add up, like even the small ones, So if you saw €2 on the floor, you wouldn't leave it on the floor. You'd probably pick it up. So it's the same kind of ideology.
Okay, don't leave money on the floor. So on that note, when you're buying something, like, would you recommend, because I know a big pain point is, oh Jesus, I don't know where the receipts are, like, where are the receipts, what am I going to do with them? Like, would you recommend purchasing everything via your bank card, your business bank card, that there's a digital trace, that it's easy to see, that you can have it there, or a shoebox, like, well, that's the old way. I remember years ago going into my accountant when I was running, like, this is 25 years ago, with literally shoe boxes, like, of receipts going in, like, it's crazy. Does that still happen, Alan?
Yeah, I'm not looking down here. I'm just scribbling notes to make sure I kind of cover as much as we can. So look, basically on the shoebox of receipts, that still exists. I'll be perfectly honest. I don't touch that with a barge pole. The whole point of where the name cloud accounts came from, everything is to be in the cloud. We are digital. I ask clients to send stuff through by email, Google Drive links, scans. If I've had people contact me before saying, I have a shoebox of receipts, where can I drop it? I'm just like, you can find somebody else. It's not the way we operate. But there's nothing wrong. If people want to do that, that's absolutely fine. It's not the way I work. What I would say is use a Dropbox, use a Google Drive, use some sort of digital storage facility, because it's a lot easier. Revenue can come back looking for receipts up to 6 years after the tax return. So you can just imagine 6 years from now, you've claimed something for 2022 and they say, where's that receipt for whatever it was? If that's in a shoebox, good luck to finding that. I had a client this week who told me that she's moved house 3 times in the last 4 or 5 years. I was asking for something like, it was a fairly substantial receipt, and she was just saying, I wouldn't know where that is. We've moved house too many times, and that will not wash with revenue, unfortunately. So I would say keep it stored digitally where possible. Google Drive is brilliant. A lot of people use Google Suite for their business. If you go into the Google Drive app and press the plus icon, there's a scanner there ready to go. Take a quick photo of the receipt. That's it, saved. You're done. Set up a folder, 2021, 2022, and so forth, and you'll eventually find it. And it also makes it easier for handing things to an accountant, because you can just give them the link and say, go nuts.
Everything's in
Everything's
there
in
that you
there.
need.
You take what you need, and it just saves you actually having to dig things out and get them to the accountants. They'll just pick and choose whatever they need. And the other thing you mentioned there, Tara, was the bank account. Some people, they would just run everything through a bank account. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. But for simplicity's sake, I would always say have a separate business bank account, because at the end of the year, when it comes to looking for information for tax, for filing accounts, for whatever people want to do and see how their business is running, it's so much more straightforward when you say, there's the business bank statement. That's it. As opposed to, oh, well, I'll take out my personal and I'll start deleting. That's the one from pennies. Don't want them to see how much I spent there, and so forth. And also, if you actually wanted to sit down and say, how is my business performing? And your bank statement is littered with your personal transactions, it's hard to do. It's just like looking for, a needle in a haystack. So, and a good thing as well is, if you have a business bank account and the bank charge you the bank charges, which they probably will, that can go down as a business expense, because it's an expense incurred by the business. So it's tax deductible again. So, it makes sense to have a second one.
And I feel like as well, it's the overwhelm of managing receipts and numbers, and it's definitely something small business owners, unless you love them, kind of leave to the last minute. And then there's this huge stress level thing happening at the person asking you for this, and you're trying to find stuff, and it's so stressful. I see it every year that it happens. So I think creating that process in your business, even if you're just starting from the get-go, is so smart. As you say, use Google Drive. It's so simple, and you don't have paper. You take a picture, you upload it, and get rid of the receipt that you have. And that's such a brilliant system to have in your business as well. I was going to pull Kim's, because Kim was asking the question about that part-time work, and then but she added to it here. She says, hi Kim, she says, do you still need to declare on Form 12 if you have the artist's tax exemptions?
Yeah, I saw that question come in, and I scribbled it down here to make sure you took it up, because it's going to be quite relevant to the biscuit community here. One of your questions, as you said, Tara, was how do I pay less tax? The artist exemption is a phenomenal way of paying less tax if you can get it. So there's various rules about the artist exemption. It can apply to to written books, to musical compositions, to creative works of art, and basically you have to apply to revenue and ask them for approval to have the artist exemption applied to that particular piece of work. And if they give you the thumbs up, then you can not pay income tax on the income generated from that work. You still would have to pay PRSI, which is our social insurance for pensions, sick leave, maternity leave, PUP, that kind of thing. And you'd have to pay USC, which is that other random tax. But the income tax, which is the big one, because it's either 20% or 40% of your income, depending on how much you generate, that's the one you would be exempt from paying. So it's a good one if you can get it. Now, there's definitely a section to answer Kim on Form 11 for self-employed people about the artist exemption, where you do actually have to say, like, I made 10 grand from my exempt income, because then that helps revenue to calculate the USC and PRSI that is payable on that. And again, it's good to declare these things, because you're being forthcoming, you're not hiding anything. No point saying, sure, it's exempt, I might as well not tell them about it. It doesn't make a difference. It actually does. So it's definitely in the Form 11, but what I'll do is I'll check the Form 12 offline, and I'll respond to Kim if she can just send me a DM. That would be helpful, just because I haven't had a client yet who has had the artist exemption and is on the Form 12, because on the Form 12, if you have side income, as I said earlier, that's where you're earning €5,000 or less. So I'm just wondering how many people earning 5,000 or less would actually have the artist exemption. It kind of makes sense that they'd be over the 5,000 threshold, but I could very well be wrong. There could be people who are, earning 5,000 or less and have the artist exemption. So I will double check that for her.
Brilliant. That'd be great. And Kim will tell us, and I can tell everyone else. Or you
Yeah,
can do a
absolutely.
story, and I'll share it actually.
Yeah,
After
yeah,
that
absolutely.
one,
No problem at all.
that would be better, wouldn't it? Brilliant. I love that. And just to prompt anybody to look at the artist exemption, because I know a lot of people, think, oh, I'll never get it. Go and look at what you need. I know a lot of the gang inside the factory, like Kim, got her artist exemption and didn't think, I'll never get it. It's for other people. No, it's for you. It can be for you too. So don't think all these things are for
Absolutely.
other people.
If you don't ask, you don't get.
That's right.
Would be my mantra. And actually, you can Google artist exemption revenue or something like that, and there's a list online of people who have the artist exemption, and if you scan down that list, you will see some household names. Bertie Ahern is in there. He wrote a book and got artist exemption on it.
Wow.
There's some fairly well-known politicians, sports stars. There's plenty of people in that list that you'd be like, you'd be looking at them going, do they need more tax
How did they
relief?
get it?
Yeah, they've done well enough. So if they can get it, people who, in this community who are creating art might have a better chance than they think.
Yes, and I think that's the limiting belief piece, isn't it? That it's for all the other politicians and bigger people doing, when actually you have just as much chance as anybody else.
Absolutely, yeah. My jaw dropped at a few of the names I've seen on that list gone, I don't believe. Like, people who it would be saying one message, in Dáil Éireann about, I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole here, but they'd be saying one thing about, we need a fairer society and pay less tax, blah, blah, blah. And then they're claiming the artist exemption at the same time. So,
wow.
Yeah, two sides of one mouth,
I know.
So do apply, anyone who's watching.
So this is brilliant. So we've done limited versus sole trader. The artist exemption thing, I think, is a big one. To maximize tax savings, that was another one that came in. How can we do that?
Yeah, basically record all of your expenses. So the way that it works is there's 3 taxes, as I mentioned. There's the income tax, the USC, Universal Social Charge, and there's PRSI, which is our social insurance. There's no getting around to PRSI. That has to be paid unless you earn less than €5,000 in a year. You don't pay it. Other than that, you're going to be paying a minimum €500 PRSI, but it's a good thing because it's what used to be called your stamps. So it keeps you in the system, and there's a record of you. And even if you're paying that minimum €500 a year, that could actually be repaid to you in spades in the future if things, if circumstances change and you needed to contact the social protection department. So it's definitely worth declaring your income from that regard, just to make sure you're in the system. And then, the ways of reducing the income, aside from the artist exemption, I suppose, is to keep record of those expenses. So expenses that are business expenses, they have to be kind of legitimate business expenses, Tara. And I would say, 9 out of 10 times you'll know in your gut, is this really a business expense? So if you went and bought, let's just say, a fridge, and you're in the business of painting, it would be quite difficult to attach those together and say, well, that fridge is for the business. Now, you could be stretching and say, oh, I keep my drinks in there to keep them cold because I need to stay refreshed while I'm working or something like that. But that's a stretch. And I've often said to clients, like, how comfortable would you be giving a revenue auditor or inspector that answer? And that's usually how you know, is it a business expense or not? But, if somebody is buying canvas, paints, materials, easel, they're obviously for the business. And it just means that those expenses get deducted from the income that people can generate from the sales of their artwork, and then that arrives at a taxable profit. So I suppose the higher your expenses, the lower your profits. So that's why I was saying, like, those €3 expenses, €5, you might say, oh, they're so small, I won't worry. If you put them in, you do get the tax benefit of that. So it's worth including them all. Another way, and vested interest here, of possibly reducing your tax is actually to get a professional involved, because an accountant or a tax accountant would know some of the, I'm not going to say tricks is the wrong word, but they know the things to look out for, the things to claim, the reliefs and credits that are available to people that people might not suddenly be aware of. Braces, for example, could be a great example. Refer back to that. We've plenty of clients who I've said, you bring up in discussion with them, have you got X, Y, and Z circumstance? And they were like, oh, sure, I never knew I could get taxed for that. So that's brilliant.
Yeah.
When you are a PAYE employee, or if you're, and you've got the smaller side income, you can actually go back 4 years and claim some of these things back. So if somebody had medical expenses 3 years ago, 4 years ago, had braces or whatever it might have been back then, there's still a time frame to get that back. So that's pretty good. So yeah, and also actually on the accountant thing, that fee is tax deductible as well because it's for the business. So I've spoken to you before this chat today, Tara, that there's an offer that you're going to release there to the Biscuit community later on, or you might have already done it, but anyway, we'll get to that. That fee is tax deductible, so even the amount that would actually be paid over, you get some of that as a tax deduction later on. So
there's bank charges and accountancy fees that sometimes we just go, that's over there, and it's not really an expense, I'm not using it, but actually it is, because it's fueling your business, right? And it's an important thing to look at as well. So just on that, while we're on that note, and everyone that's on the mailing list for the Biscuit community has gotten the information about your offer, which thank you, by the way. And I think it's such an amazing offer for all the Bickies, because I know it's something that people really struggle with, and just to let people have that offer. Tell us about that before we go on to the next question, Alan. Just tell us what that offer is, and if you want it, gang, hop on the mailing list that's in the link in the bio. Just hop on the weekly bite and you'll get that information.
So basically what it is I suppose at the onset of COVID, I was looking around to see what can an accountant do to help people who might be kind of finding some tough times. And we obviously saw drastic reductions in incomes for certain industries. A lot of people, let's be honest, a lot of people have been affected by it over the last couple of years, and hopefully we've turned a corner now this month with the reduction of restrictions, or the cancellation of restrictions, which is great. But basically I was looking to see what can I do to kind of help, and all I could think of really was a reduced fee, just to help people who mightn't want to use an accountant, or might say I can't afford to use an accountant. I was like, I'll reduce the fees for certain cohorts, and basically we might actually be able to get them into a surplus position where after they pay me, they actually get more money back, or they at least are staying on top of their taxes. And I suppose it became really, really relevant then when people were receiving PUP, because that's actually taxable income, and a lot of people weren't aware of it. And revenue will be chasing those people down because they know who got PUP and who didn't. They have a PPS number. So again, it was just a way of not having a deterrent there in helping people make sure that they file their tax returns and square everything off and just get this PUP out of the way, put it to bed, put it behind them. So continuing that offer and just extending it obviously to the Biscuit community, which is a fee of €299 for the Form 11 income tax return to be completed, and that includes consultation, review of all the income and expenses that your community would have had, registering as their tax agent, filing the tax return for them, doing the computational piece of work, and then assisting them in making their payment. Not actually dipping into our pocket to make the payment and contributing towards it, but facilitating the payment being made to revenue, and just dealing with the correspondence back and forth with revenue as well. That's a VAT inclusive price. There's no sneaky add-ons or anything like that, and it's a flat fee. So it's all well and good. Some people might be in and out in 2 or 3 emails. I've had some people come back 10, 15 times an email. It's a flat fee. So we're there to help.
That's great. Thank you.
So that's what it is anyway. It's there to everyone who's in the community, and you have the code, you'll email it out to people.
So gang, an amazing opportunity to hop in with Alan on that. So again, if you want that code for the offer, just hop into the link in the bio right now in our Instagram bio and click join the weekly bite, and you'll get onto that email list and get that information. Okay. Wildbird Studio, hello lady. This lady is an amazing artist that's doing fantastic stuff, Alison. And Alison asks, is the minimum PRSI €500 enough for the likes of a dentist visit, eye visits, etc. for the year?
Yeah, it would be. Again, it's just making sure that you stay in the system, Alison. So yeah, once you've made your contribution, you're in. And then there is if you Google PRSI records. There's a department up in, I think it's Buncrana, up in Donegal. There's a phone number there for them. If you call them, you can actually or email them, you can ask them for kind of a statement of basically your contributions and just see where you're at, because you might go to the dentist or the optician the odd time and be told that you haven't enough credits or stamps, or because it happened to me before. I was out of the country for a few years living in Australia, came back, I was like, oh, I'll go get an eye check, or I'll get the teeth checked while I'm here. And because I hadn't been paying PRSI in this country for 3 or 4 years, rightfully I was told to jog on, basically, and I'm not getting it for free. So you do have to have certain contributions, but that €500 will keep you in the system and cover that base. So,
Okay, brilliant. There's one or two more questions that I know we're running out of time.
yeah, fire away.
Okay, so when you're prepping for the tax season and that we want to kind of relieve the stress around that whole getting organized. A lot of people have asked about maybe some tools, or I know you mentioned Google Drive. Is there anything else people, maybe even like Alison, who would have a bigger business than just starting? She's quite established. Is there any kind of tools you'd advise people to use as they grow?
Yeah, so basically I've built a spreadsheet, which I would be happy, if people want to DM me, I'd be happy to kind of share it with them. It's a kind of just a record keeper, but it makes nice little charts and stuff out of the data you put into it. So it would show you your income on a monthly basis and your profit for the year, and where you're spending most of your money on, or which pieces of work are generating most of your income. So it actually kind of helps people to understand their business a little bit more, just by looking at nice charts rather than boring numbers. So if people wanted a DM, I'd be happy to share that with them, and it's just a useful way of kind of tracking information. And then also, if they were to use cloud accounts, it's kind of handy to hand us back our spreadsheet that we'll recognize and be like, it's cool, we can extract the data we need from that to piece together a tax return and file everything with revenue from there. Obviously, keeping receipts is a huge one, very, very important. So definitely try and keep on that, whether it's the shoebox of physical receipts, whether it's the virtual drive, or whether it's even getting an app. Like, there are some apps out there that will record these things for you. It's people's personal preference. I mean, if someone was to spend money on an app or a subscription for an app to record their receipts, again, that is a business expense, so it can go down as an expense that will be allowable as a tax deduction. And it's just a case of being organized, as you say, Tara, having all those kind of records. Another reason for having a separate business bank account is because that bank statement just makes it easier to kind of vouch everything back to in case of any kind of queries, rather than digging through personal statements and stripping out the coffees and the rent payment and all the bits and pieces. And then the other thing to be kind of just organized, I suppose, is to know the deadlines. So basically, the big one to know when you're self-employed, as I imagine maybe most of the community are, is the 31st of October. So Halloween, scary enough as it is, and now you need to throw tax into the mix. That is your deadline. And it can get a little bit confusing, because basically, say for 2021 tax year, the tax year runs as a calendar. It's 1 January to 31 December. But then your tax deadline for 2021 is 31st of October 2022. So it's 10 months later. But if people want to be prepared, there's nothing wrong with getting your ducks in a row, getting your information together early in 2022. It could have been a case of, restrictions were keeping people, they were so bored for early January. I've never seen a busier January than this year. People getting on to me like, I want to be organized. I want to know what my tax situation is now. When you do that, what you can do is you can give your accountant your information. They can kind of put together, look, this is what your tax liability is going to be roughly. I say roughly, it should be fairly accurate. Things do change a little bit. But you can find that out in January or February or March. And then you've got months and months and months to plan for the payment that you need to make at the 31st of October. You don't actually have to file it in January, February, March. You can just put a pin in it and leave it till then. Last October, countless people coming to me the week before the thing was due. I need to pay some tax. What do I need to do? And you're like, oh, here we go. It happens every year. Don't worry if you're one of those people. For those people, you then turn around to them and say, look, your tax bill is, let's say, €3,000. And they start, crying on the phone, like, well, I don't have, how am I meant to get that within a week? And, that's for them to arrange with revenue. So the earlier in the year you can at least get this information together, find out how much it's looking like it's going to be. You then have a lot more time in your hands to figure out the saving or where that's going to come from.
Yeah.
or working a bit harder, or making more
Or,
sales, or whatever you need to do
yeah,
to make
because you have a
payment.
goal at the end. I have to get through.
Exactly.
I have to pay this, like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right. And then there's one other, just to add to the confusion again, there's one other thing. There's called preliminary tax, and this some people are aware of it, some people aren't, and that's all fine. That's what we're here to help on and advise on. But preliminary tax, basically, as I said there, 1 January to 31 December 2021, you have to pay by 31st of October 2022. But also by the 31st of October 2022, Revenue wants you to pay a contribution towards 2022's tax. So the way where this gets troublesome for people is the first time they file a tax return, because they get caught on the double. They have to pay 2021's bill, let's say it's €2,000, and then they have to pay 2022 preliminary tax, which will be another €2,000 at the same time. So the very first time you do this, you basically pay twice, and it can definitely catch people out when they contact us in October and find out that they have a big bill to pay twice. So now what happens then is the following January 2023, when it comes to settling the 2022 tax bill, you've already paid €2,000 of that. So if you owed £2,500, let's say, for 2022, you've paid 2,000, so you settle up €500.
Yeah.
But then by Halloween 2023, you have to pay €2,500. Yeah, €2,500 of 2023 preliminary tax. So you're constantly in this loop,
The preliminary.
basically. Yeah, but the worst time is the first time you do it, because you pay twice. You pay 2021 full bill and 2022 preliminary. So just be very, very careful on that. And the earlier you get in touch, the more time you have to know about this.
Okay, Jeannie Mac.
The minefield.
What? Right. That's great though to know that, because and again, it's all prep work, isn't it, of just being prepared for these big numbers that are going to hit you, which causes so much anxiety. And again, we want to take away that. Alison just says there on the reply for the last one about the €500. That happened earlier this month, but I paid my taxes.
Okay, that she got refused a treatment. Okay,
Yeah.
I would say the best thing to do there, Alison, is just Google that number of the department, the PRSI department up in Donegal, and just give them a quick call and ask them what are your contributions. They'll be able to set it out for you.
Yeah.
And it could just be there must be a reason. It mightn't have reflected. Possibly you paid your tax to Revenue and they haven't yet passed that information on to the Department of Social Protection. They are even though they're all government bodies, they are disconnected.
Yes.
And when I say disconnected, like, we've seen plenty of clients who received PUP during the last couple of years, and they were paid the PUP by the Department of Social Protection, who then gives some information to Revenue, and then Revenue pre-populates some information into their tax return, and there's a different PUP number in there, which could potentially lead to higher taxes. So there does seem to be a bit of a breakdown in communication the odd time, so it would be worth just giving them a quick buzz in Donegal and finding out
clarify that.
what's happening there.
Yeah, okay. Oh, Jeannie Mac. On the phone, so Alison, for after this call.
Yeah. Apologies about that.
Linda says, I was late joining. Okay, thanks, Linda. Linda says, if you work part-time and give PRSI contributions through that, is it important to contribute?
Yeah, so if you work part-time in, I'm going to assume, a PAYE role, PRSI would likely be deducted from your payroll through the payslip and the monthly or weekly payroll system. It depends on your income levels. There are some thresholds where if you earn below a certain amount, you don't actually have to pay PRSI. You're called PRSI exempt, so you still get the credit or the stamp. You just don't actually have to pay over for it. And basically everyone each year would have to pay this minimum threshold of €500 if they're self-employed and over €5,000 of income. But if if you are part-time PAYE and you're paying some PRSI through that will be credited against the €500. So you might only have to pay, say, €400 on your self-employed. So it all balances out when you file a tax return. The system is clever enough to know what you've already paid and what you need to pay to balance up.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Thanks, Linda, for the question. Any tax allowances for working at home? Yeah.
Basically, yeah. So the broadband, light and heat will be the main ones. And yeah, again, it's for the number of days you worked at home. So it's not just a simple case of multiplying the amount you've spent by your 30% rate from 2022 onwards for each of those. if you're in, say, a house share, for example, and your name isn't actually on the bill, but you're contributing, your contribution will count. So it's worth keeping a note of that. Once you can kind of, again, if someone asked you for a proof that you could, I don't know, show a bank statement payment to your landlord or to your housemate, just to show, yes, I did pay €100 each month for bills, that kind of thing. So yeah, again, make sure you're keeping records, and it's easier when you do these things electronically. Cash payments need to be dying out big time, but
Yeah.
it'll be a lot harder to prove that you paid €100 in cash times 12 months.
They're the hard ones, all right.
Good luck getting a receipt for that one and being able to prove it if it came to it. But yeah, the work from home expenses, it is mostly the broadband, the light and heat, and also I always put in a claim for mobile phone expenses, where self-employed people would have maybe the one phone for both business and personal use, because if you're using it 50-50, you put in a claim for that as well.
Brilliant. I think we should have like a 24-hour channel with that.
A telethon or something like that. I mean, look, there could be more questions, Tara. I'm happy to jump back on and do this again, and if you want to sign in, because
no, we definitely will.
Yeah, like it's very early. Like I say, there's been some amount of activity this January that has never happened before. Some people are very, very, very on the ball. Not to say anyone who hasn't been in touch with someone at this stage isn't on the ball, but I've spoken to a few others who are in the same position. They cannot believe the activity. I presume now that we're allowed to go back to the pubs and restaurants, that people are just going to throw the tax thing to the back of their mind for a long time. But it's one of those things.
I think it's a great reflection as well, though, on the mindset around how people want to be on top of things. And I think because anxiety and stress levels have been so high for the last 2 years, we're trying to find the sources and to fix them now, like while we can. So what's causing the stress? And this, I would always say this to people running businesses: find the triggers for you. And I know every year it's the same trigger. It's the account, I'm up the walls, I can't talk to anyone, I have to find receipt. Like, find the solutions for yourself and your business to be able to produce new work, do more social, email marketing, all the other things we have to do. This has to be done. And, talking to people like Alan from cloudaccounts.ie can help you do that. Like, so don't bury your head in the sand and go la la la, which we all tend to do. Be one of those people in January to say, you know what, I'm going to own this. I'm going to really just look after this part of what I do, even if it's just, you're not declaring anything. It's just, I sold something, I have a tax exemption, and I've done the right thing. And then you can relax for the rest of the year. Then you're not under pressure. So I think, really smart move, gang, to just take action on it now for a nice 2022 as we kick off almost in February now. So Alan, thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you took the time to come on and talk to us today. And thank you so much for that biscuit offer as well. That's going to hit everyone's email as well. And if you are on the list, go check your email for that offer. And that's it. We'll definitely have you on again. I'm struggling with my braces there. I will definitely have you on again, Alan. And thank you so, so much. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Not a problem. Not a pleasure to be here. And as I say, maybe when we get a bit further into the year, closer to that 31 October deadline, we'll catch up again, just because there'll be more questions, more panic the closer we get to that. And that'll be grand. No, it was a pleasure chatting to you, Tara. Thank you so much for having me on. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to DM or to contact at info@cloudaccounts.ie. And no email will go unanswered, and there's no such thing as a bad question. I've heard them all before. So ask away. More than happy to help.
Love it, love it, love it. Thanks, Alan. Let's talk to you next Friday on the Friday Takeaway, and have a great weekend, gang. Bye. Thanks a million. Bye, gang. Bye.
Bye-bye.